With us, it's all in one. We own the hardware, we own the software, we own the cloud. We're managing that cloud. So you could look at it, it's either one throat to choke or one back to pat, however you want to call it.
All right, let's go ahead and get this podcast rolling. Welcome back to Let's Make IT Simple. This is a special episode. We get to chat with our friend here from Datto. We got Mike DePalma with us. Travis, as always. Mike, welcome. Thank you for taking some time out to join us for our podcast. If you want to give us a little intro, who you are, where you're from, what you do, so everybody can get to know you a little bit. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. And obviously, thank you for having me. So my name is Mike DePalma. I'm the Senior Channel Development Manager for North America here at Datto. My role is a little bit unique, kind of travel all around North America. I do a lot of these types of things, podcasts, panels, things like that. I've been fortunate enough to sit alongside some folks from the Department of Homeland Security, FBI. So as we go through this conversation, we could weave that in. We're based out of Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm born and raised. Robert told me I'm the first person he ever met from the beautiful Nutmeg State. But we've been around for about 15 years here at Datto, and I'll get into a little bit about what we do, but it's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you, Mike. And you know what? The reason why, what they say is that, no one actually leaves. My sister lives in Rhode Island, so they're close by. So I know it exists. I know there are humans there in Connecticut. I just hadn't got the opportunity to meet any yet. So
couldn't be a better description. I married my high school sweetheart and will never leave. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us virtually, for stepping out of Connecticut virtually, even though you travel all the time. But it's great to have you with us. We got a great podcast topic scheduled for today, and Travis is going to really roll us into that. Travis, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Datto backups, how they actually compare to other backup services. We've been a company that's used and a partner with Datto for many, many years and have used their backups. I've been very, very pleased with them. But Mike, just to kick this thing off, tell me about Datto backups. What makes them unique? Why are they different than some of the other options out there in the marketplace? And what should we know about them?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we were able to do is kind of this mindset shift around backup, because obviously data backup's been around for decades, right? And most traditional backups are looking at everything on the file and folder level, right? All the way back to the floppy disks. Here's all my files and folders. They live on some third-party device, whatever that is, or maybe up in the cloud. And that's what backups are doing. What our founder, and it's actually an interesting story, our founder started the company when he was 22, started building these devices by hand and selling them in his parents' basement. We're now a publicly traded company. So it's one of those cool basement to billions stories. And what he was able to do was create instead an image-based backup. So it's looking at an entire server, capturing operating systems, applications. Everything is mirrored over to an on-premise device and then subsequently set off to our 2 data centers. We actually protect over an exabyte of data in our 9 data centers around the world. It's one of the largest private data center networks. We've got 2 here in the States, one in Pennsylvania and one out in Utah. So they have the geo-redundancy piece. But looking at it through the lens of an image-based backup as opposed to the traditional form of backup was really what helped drive our company forward, but really the small business community, because that stuff was available at the enterprise level for years. But about 15 years ago, when we got into the market, we were really the first to come up with a solution like that for the small businesses at a price point that made sense for them.
And when you say image-based backup, there's a lot of people, I think, who are probably listening right now and say, well, what does that mean, image-based versus file-based? Because that is a big distinction between, the 2 different strategies when it comes to backing things up.
Yeah, exactly. So what an image is doing is it's taking a snapshot of that entire device. So it's obviously capturing all the volumes, all the files and folders, but also any applications that live on there, the operating system, and it gives you the ability to do a couple different things, which differentiates itself from traditional backup. Once you have that big base image, you would sit down and set up a backup schedule, say it's hourly. What's happening there is it's not taking a full image every single time. It's just looking for the changes that occur between those 2 points in time. So it gives us the ability to create this inverse chain where every one of those backup points are independent of one another. So we see a lot of ransomware attacks, right? The first thing, and you guys could attest to what a criminal is going to do, is try to find the backups and go and attack that. With this, every one of those backups are a completely independent instance in time. So if you get hit at 11 o'clock, your 10 o'clock backup is safe and valid. The other big piece to an image-based solution is it's not just giving the ability to restore that data. You could actually spin up a virtual machine, meaning a virtual instance of that server. So instead of your first reaction being, okay, I got to go restore all of this data, What this is saying is, no, we could fail over essentially to this on-premise device. That on-premise device is compromised, same capabilities in either data center. So the idea is to keep your business up and running. So backup was kind of the traditional way of looking at it. We refer to this as continuity of operations. I mean, a backup is only as good in the speed as which you can recover it, right? So the ultimate goal is to reduce the downtime, to make sure this becomes an inconvenience as opposed to one of these business threatening events. So that's what the image-based style backup allows you to do. A lot of those different things with the ultimate goal of just keeping your business up and running.
So this makes it a lot different than a lot of those services you might hear on the radio that are being advertised, or even on television. They say, we'll back up your files to the cloud. This has a cloud element, but it's a different style backup entirely, because you said it's got that image you can actually virtualize. I know that the equipment that you sell, you call it a BCDR, right? And I believe that's business continuity and disaster recovery. And so can you speak to the business continuity piece, how that is different from just the backups?
Absolutely. Yeah. The business continuity or continuity of operations is just the ability to, before you even get, a backup restoration started, to get your entire business up and running. So a lot of those solutions that you talked about, the traditional, the ones you hear on the radio, right? Those were first kind of, developed as something for your home PC, for pictures and things like that. And then now that the opportunity into the commercial space presented itself, they've moved into that. The continuity of operations takes a different look at what that means, because you're going to have that full base. It's into, everything that lived on that server over here onto an on-premise device. The speed in which you can get your systems back up and running are really minutes or hours. I used to go on the road and do these disaster demos. I don't know if you guys ever saw the Datto disaster demo, but I'd go out and I'd do a presentation. And normally we used to light fires. Normally I would give somebody in the crowd a hammer, smash this thing. Who doesn't want to smash their laptop, right? And then I would have that backed up to a Datto device. And with a data set that size, within 30 seconds, I had virtualized that off of this device. And so it shows you, we've got some really cool videos. We did one out in Iowa at a shooting range. These guys shot up the devices and then shot the Datto and spun up in the cloud. So it's the idea that we're going to reduce the downtime. Because ultimately, when these criminals are encrypting your data, the leverage they have, they're encrypting it and you're not backing up your data. You've got no other recourse but to pay, right? But the reason people pay is not because they don't think they'll ever get their data back. It's the amount of time it takes them to get that data back. And then they're going to start doing that math and say, hey, I could pay $5,000 right now and hopefully get my data back. Or I can go try to restore. And that could be days or weeks or even longer. So, there's a million stories about that, but that's the leverage they have. So if we could eliminate that by giving you the ability to get your systems back up, everybody in your office, if it's happening locally, a lot of times won't even know that has occurred. They're just operating, backing that data up. And then when you're ready for that restoration, you're getting yourself back to not where you were when Jim down the hall clicked on that malicious email, but instead back to where you were the moment that new piece of hardware is in place.
I want to jump in here real quick. As you know, just the lay person, not this intensely intelligent human being like the two of you. As I'm hearing you speak about this and the importance of backups and business continuity, disaster recovery, that's clear. One thing that we really want to know is what differentiates Datto from the other guys. And we won't get into who the other guys are, but what really sets you apart? Because obviously this is important for any business. Why would a business seek out Datto specifically?
Yeah, and there's a couple things. We've got 11 patents on our Cirrus device, on our flagship product. Because we were the first to market with a lot of things. That inverse chain technology, we were the first to market with that. We were the first to market also with screenshot verification, meaning all those cool virtualization capabilities. Those are being tested every single night as well. Snapshot is taken, timestamp. So not only are the backups being automatically tested, the offsite sync is tested, those virtualization capabilities are tested as well. The other kind of differentiator for us, a lot of our competitors, they're just a software product, right? So now there's another party for the hardware if you're going to have something on premise, and then another vendor for the cloud piece. With us, it's all in one. We own the hardware, we own the software, we own the cloud. We're managing that cloud. So you could look at it, it's either one throat to choke or one back to pat, however you want to call it. It's one person all under one roof. The other piece of it is security. Obviously, right now, there's a ton of stories out there about not only businesses being attacked, but vendors. And so we have a team. We've got about 2,000 employees. 60 folks are dedicated, not to any sales or marketing or even development of the product, just to test our security. We have bounties that we offer to third parties. If you can get in, we will pay you a bounty, because we know security ultimately, if any of these solutions are not secure, That's where the criminals are going after, because they figure if I can get one of these big vendors, and we got 1 million plus businesses that have a Datto in place, well, that's a lot easier way. So we take that really seriously. Our CISO's team, our Chief Information Security Officers team, put out a lot of threat briefs every single time there's a big attack. We send out those threat briefs, and that's not just to Datto partners. Anybody could read them. He's got a weekly podcast talking about security. So a lot of people think about backup. They don't tie that into security necessarily. They think of all the front end stuff. So we look at more of a cyber resiliency. We want to stop everything from getting in, but what happens on, we call it the right-hand side of the boom being this big attack. What's happening on that side? How quickly are you detecting it, responding to it, and then recovering to it? So backup really has become, and especially business continuity, disaster recovery, obviously, part of your all-encompassing cyber resiliency or cybersecurity plan. Those are some of the main differentiators there. Then we can go into the granular details of it, but on a company-wide level, that's really important to us.
All those reasons are excellent. And, that's a lot of why we chose to work with Datto. When we were looking at different suppliers out there, we wanted to make sure that we had somebody who checked a lot of boxes, right? Wasn't just a backup solution, but actually could lower that mean time to recovery for us, because that is huge, right? It's not just about where is the data. It's about how fast can we get the data back and actually get the customer up and running. Do we have a product that's secure that we're working with that actually we can trust? We looked at some other software. One of the things that actually, this is a small thing that I don't know that everybody thinks about, but your system doesn't run on the Windows platform, right? It runs on, I believe it's, is it BSD or Linux that's underneath the hood there?
Yep.
It's Linux.
It's Linux-based, yep.
This actually was a major consideration for us because we didn't want to have actually something Windows-based if we're trying to use that platform to recover from encryption events, because whatever attack was going out against the customer's equipment might make that platform vulnerable. And so just having that difference in the operating system actually gives us a small but important sort of hurdle there for the attacker to overcome that actually made us more confident in the product. But that was one of our major considerations. Another thing for us that was huge when looking at your product was seeing whether or not from an MSP side, and this isn't going to be as important to necessarily the end users, but as an actual service provider, that you had good integrations and good reporting. And you guys have accomplished that. Even though we're using a different PSA than the one that Datto actually now owns, you still have really tight integrations into that PSA, and you actually give us good alerts so that we can actually act when there's a problem with backups. One of the major problems with backups, in my opinion, is that people set them up, they think they're good, they don't check them, then a disaster strikes and they go to actually retrieve the information and there's nothing there.
Yeah, I think, and there's a couple things to add to that. Those are great points. I think if there's somebody manually testing or manually checking these backups, there's a lot of risk of user error, clearly. I used to work at a large construction management company about a decade or so ago. And these are public projects. We were building schools and all these hospitals. And our backups were on an external hard drive. And that was it. And we locked them up. Right. So with Datto, we're Linux-based, we use ZFS, we're ZFS-based, which basically means that even if somebody stole that box, it would be useless to them. They couldn't get access to that data. And beyond that, I know you deal with our tech support. None of the folks on the call would be calling our tech support directly, but we also have 24/7, 365 direct-to-tech US-based support. So it's all about speed of recovery. It's all about getting back up and running. You guys know it could be New Year's Eve at 11:59. You're going to talk to somebody in our Norwalk office, or you're going to talk to somebody up in Rochester. So the speed in which you could respond and get those systems back up, that's how we win this fight, right, against these criminals. Is just to overcome that and be able to get back up and running. And then you don't have to pay the ransom, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually, leaned on that customer service and support a few times. We've had some instances where things went wrong. We did have to do a recovery. And we actually had to utilize your capability in the cloud, right, where you can recover instead of on the device, actually on the cloud side of things. And your team was there to actually help us through that, which was awesome.